Hi, everybody. I'm back, and now this presentation is about pairing H5P with Koha to produce interactive online patron experiences. For those of you who joined me for my earlier presentation, I was trying out Prezi as a new presentation medium. And for this presentation, since it's about H5P, I decided that I would do the whole thing, like all of my visuals and everything in H5P. So I don't have slides particularly as such. Everything is linked in a blog post on my blog. So we're just going to scroll through and learn about H5P. So you are probably wondering, what in the world is H5P? This is something that I learned about just about a year ago. It's been around since 2015. So it's not terribly new, but I think it's still kind of making its way into the mainstream learning world. But H5P stands for
Myka,
yes?
do you have the YouTube video open?
No, I do not.
Huh. Because I'm not streaming anymore, but at least one person is hearing it twice. Is anyone other than Fred hearing it twice? I've only heard from Fred so far.
Audio is fine here.
Yeah, I also have the audio fine here. Fred, you might have it on 2 tabs. Okay. Go ahead.
All right, well, I will resume. So H5P stands for HTML5 package. Basically, Flash, a lot of folks had Flash things on their websites and use Flash to help design interactive content for websites. And Adobe Flash was kind of a dying product due to some security problems with it. And so there was a group of folks that came together and decided to create this H5P framework for creating interactive content for websites. One of the really great things about H5P, it's completely open source. And it is designed with the idea that you can use it to create open educational resources. So for those of you who aren't familiar what those are, OER, Open Educational Resources, are those resources that are produced. They're open source, open access, where they can be used openly and freely by educators to teach classes and to share information in schools primarily. So H5P it's a very open framework and allows for a lot of creating, sharing, and reusing of content. And you don't have to know a lot of fancy coding skills. H5P currently supports the ability to create and share interactive videos, quizzes, simulations, all kinds of things. It's mobile friendly, it's dynamic sizing. You can move content from one place to another. It's supported by all browsers. So, there's really not a lot of barriers to accessing H5P content or creating it. Right now, there are 49 content types. So we can, I'll go into detail about those content types in a little bit, but 49 different content types. So there's a huge range of different types of activities and interactions that you can create and produce on a website using H5P. The developers designed it so that it could be rapidly adopted. The code is very stable. So it's a really good project. It's got some good community support behind it. And it's also got some good platform support as well. It's got an LTI module in their on their commercial site. They have an LTI compatibility, so it can be integrated into just about any learning management system, but there's also plugins available for WordPress and Drupal. So that is H5P in a nutshell. Now you're probably wondering what it looks like. So the first example I'd like to show you is some H5P that I put together for our library, for a help page for our library. So we get a lot of questions about our library website. We use Koha as the main landing page for our library. So folks ask us questions all the time, particularly about how to log into their account. So this is an example. I'm going to make it full screen for you. This is an example of an H5P image hotspots. So you can click on different parts of the image to then get more information. So this is a way for us to give kind of a guide to the website, to Koha, so that folks can understand exactly what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to put their login information, how to use our search bar, and things like that. On this page too, we put a second H5P image hotspots that goes into some detail about the patron account details page, the patron summary page. So with these different hotspots that tell folks, okay, this is where you can go to get a digital library card or whatnot. So on the back end, I will show you what that looks like and just how easy it is to create these. So the first step in creating an image hotspots is to, once you've got your place where you have your H5P plugin. So in this example, it's in WordPress. You go into your H5P menu here and you say you want to create something new, and you choose the image hotspots content type. You have a background image that you start with that you upload directly into the tool. You give it some alternative text. There's a lot of accessibility features built into H5P so that it works with all assistive technologies, screen readers, etc. You can define what you want your hotspot icon to look like. So in this case, we used a plus sign, and then we choose the same color as the main maroon on our website. And then the second step is to go ahead and add those hotspots. So it gives you a little thumbnail image of your background picture where you can click and place a little dot that's where you want your hotspot to be. You give it a header. The header is what appears when a cursor is just hovering over the hotspot. And then you can choose what content you want in the hotspot. The options include text, images, and video. So it's a way, like if you wanted to, with my example of doing kind of a little guided tour of the Koha homepage, if you wanted to do short little videos to embed at those login screens, you could do that as well. The text works just as good too. You get a nice text editor here. You can add as many hotspots to your image as you need. And when you're done and you save it, the next thing you have to do is you grab this embed code. So at the bottom of every H5P content window, you'll find two little links, one for reuse and one for embed. The reuse button allows you to download the H5P content and upload it to another place so that you can manipulate it or adjust it. And then the embed tool, that just gives you some iframe code that you can plug straight into whatever website, wherever you want it to be displayed. And so in our case, we're displaying it in Koha. So for our help page, we set up a new local use system preference to create a help page. It's page_help. And then you just add this iframe code. There's also some script code that goes with it that allows the H5P content to resize dynamically. So those both get copied over there. And when you save it in your system preferences, then that's how it gets onto Koha. And one of the really nice things about this too is you can go back and make updates and changes to the H5P in your WordPress or wherever it's hosted. And once you save those changes there, they're automatically going to get pushed over into Koha. So once you get that embed code in Koha, you don't have to mess with it again, unless you're actually changing what you have embedded. The other example that I'd like to show you is a virtual tour of our library that we have embedded on our OPAC information page for our libraries. So this is using the Virtual Tour 360 H5P feature or content type. And I'm guessing that this is going to be kind of a little jerky on the stream, but you can click and drag this. This is a 360-degree image of the outside of our campus where the library building is. So you can click and drag that to look around. These plus signs can tell you what you're looking at. So this is where our outside book drop is. This is where the handicapped entrance is. This is where the regular entrance is. The little arrows are the where you can change to a new scene. So this is when you first walk into our library, this is what you see. Although the door doesn't really look that trippy. But there's my office when I'm there. And then again, we can move on and you can chain a bunch of these images together so that it really kind of gives your patrons a sense of what they would see when they come to the library. They know exactly where things are, help them plan their visit and help them feel comfortable when they arrive. This is what our lower level looks like. So I think it's really cool. It's hard for me to know since I'm not there in person if y'all think it's really cool too. But I was really super excited when I put that together because I think it's just the niftiest thing ever. So the behind the scenes of how the virtual tour works. So we started off with taking the 360-degree photos. That's really the first thing you have to do. And we don't have a lot of money at our library, so we do not have one of those fancy 360-degree cameras that takes images that don't look trippy. So instead, we used, or I used the Google Street View app, which is free to download. And it uses your smartphone's camera. It's actually really quite easy to do. It gives you little dots that you're supposed to line up as you're taking the pictures all around you. I would recommend you kind of have to spin around about 3 times. So maybe after 2 times, spin in the other direction so you don't make yourself dizzy while you're taking pictures. But it stitches the pictures together for you. and creates these 360-degree images. So once you have those 360-degree images, you go into your H5P plugin and you tell it you want to create a virtual tour, and it gives you the little framework for that. Give it a title, and you upload your 360-degree photo as a new scene. So you start out, there aren't any scenes at all, so you click new scene and start uploading your photo. Once you get your photo in there, you can then add your interactions. So the different interactions that are available are go to scene, which is the one that links your scenes together, helps your users navigate between one scene and another. Or you can do text, images, audio files, video files. So, for example, if you wanted to do one for your own library and have, a video of someone welcoming people at the circulation desk, and you put it as a little interaction at the circulation desk on that 360 video, that would be also pretty awesome, I think. So once you add these interactions, you do have to kind of click and drag the button exactly where you want it to appear. You can also click and drag the photo around when you're adding these interactions. This is what the details look like when you're adding an interaction. So, again, you get a label for it, and you get a text box where you can, if you were adding a text interaction, if you were adding a video, you would get a prompt of, a video file to either upload or a YouTube link. You can change the settings to have the labels appear at hover or to always be there. But again, once you're done with your interactions, you can add more scenes, and also setting your starting positions for your photos. So you can choose exactly what frame, what view you want your users to see when they first go into that scene. So you can also add static photos as well. So if you wanted to take a picture of a room and just like the room from one view instead of, the 360-degree view, you could do that and add that as a separate scene to the tour. And then just like with the image hotspots, when you're done and you've saved everything, you grab this embed code so that you can copy and paste it into Koha. So I decided to put our virtual tour on our OPAC info page. So that page or that system preference actually gives you a text editor. So when you go in to edit the source code, or you turn on source code editing in the text editor and you paste the embed code, it will only paste your iframe code. It will strip the script. So if you're going to use these H5Ps on this page or any place in Koha that uses that text editor where it strips the script, then you'll need to use some jQuery in your OPAC user.js so that loads the script and allows the H5P content to resize. So here's that jQuery that you would need to add. And I need to thank Lucas Gass at Bywater Solutions for pointing me in that direction. I knew it existed, but I needed somebody to tell me exactly what the jQuery was. And then once you get that in your Koha, you can save it and load it and tell your patrons about it. So at this point, I can pause for some questions, or I can just move on and go into H5P content ideas for libraries.
Why don't we give it a couple seconds, because there's a delay before moving on. There's a couple comments Christopher Brandon said it looks great on your looking around view. And then Olivia said it is cool. And Christopher also said a tripod really helps when you're trying to get that 360 view. So, I'm not seeing any questions popping up in chat.
Okay. All right. Well, so as I mentioned earlier, there are 49 content types for H5P right now. And because it's open source, it's open to development at any time. So I've divided so this is all 49 content types. I have divided them up into some categories here, and would like, what I'm planning to do is kind of focus on the top two categories, the tutorials and trainings and fun and games, because I think those are going to be the ones that are most relevant or would be most used in a library setting. The learning and user input, those are all content types that, libraries, if you've got educational programs that you run or support, particularly, there's a lot down here that would be particularly good if you have any language learning programs. You might want to check those out. The layout and design piece, these are content types that are kind of less interactive and more just convenient if you need a quick and easy way to arrange content on a web page without knowing code and not having a fancy plugin in your content management system that would allow you to arrange images in a collage, for example. So, or produce an image slider, for example. So for these layout and design ones, I think there are multiple tools, multiple options out there for you. So you may or may not choose H5P as your option for those things. But so for tutorials and trainings, and this would be, like, I'm thinking of staff trainings or even patron tutorials if you're trying to teach your patrons how to use something. There is a documentation tool, which you're basically creating a template that allows users to produce a downloadable document. So you kind of lay out the template for them, and then the user kind of fills in all the details. And then at the very end of filling in all of the details, they're prompted to download their completed document. So this could be used for applications or permission forms, perhaps, if you have any programs that you need your patrons to produce some kind of documentation. Image hotspots. This is an image hotspot. And then I showed you the image hotspots that we have on our site. There's a feature called impressive presentation. I haven't used this yet. It's got parallax effects. So if you're familiar with Prezi Classic, where you kind of can zoom in, zoom out, rotate around, that's the type of features that you'll find in that presentation tool. There's also an interactive book. So if you are producing any kind of multi-chapter, multi-part resource, this interactive book might be a good option. You can also integrate video, images, and questions too. If you have little quiz questions, it can be particularly helpful when you're training staff, if you want them to read something and then take a little quiz to check their knowledge and make sure that they understood what they read. Interactive video is a really helpful and useful one. And I'm thinking broadly as libraries who want to share information and resources. So I've been involved in some communities where you want to produce videos that all of the libraries can use, but yet there's a lot of specific content or specific details that maybe apply to your library, but don't apply to the other libraries who are using that particular resource. So interactive video is one solution to that problem. You can take a video that someone else has produced, and if there's something that's particular to your library that the video doesn't cover, or if there's something particular in the video that's covered that doesn't apply to your library, you can use the features in interactive video to make little annotations to indicate any changes or any specifications that you might want to communicate. So it's a great way to kind of share and use video content from library to library. This is the 360 tour tool that we looked at together. There's also a timeline tool, so you can create a timeline of events with multimedia. So if you are doing local history exhibits, or even some kind of book club presentation where you're looking in depth at, a certain historical time period that, the book takes place in, you could use this timeline to, create an interactive experience for your patrons. Course presentation is more popular than the impressive presentation. So that's pretty much the straight up slideshow. You can integrate video and images, and also a lot of different types of questions. So you can pause throughout the presentation to ask questions on the content that's covered. And then the big kahuna of everything, the big one of all of these is branching scenario. Branching scenario, you can create dilemmas and self-paced learning experiences. There's a really fabulous example on the h5p.org website that I would encourage you to take a look at. That's training social workers, training for social workers. That's got different videos. You watch a video and then you can answer a few questions about what you think the correct way to respond to the situation is. So this, again, kind of taking that kind of model and adapting it to libraries for any kind of security training or diversity training, I think would be wonderful. It's also really cool if you have a youth program and you want to create choose your own adventure activities and have fun writing a story and creating all different kinds of scenarios, and have your youth choose the path that they want to take in their little adventure, and have a different ending. For fun and games, I think a lot of these would appeal more to probably youth services, but I don't know, I can see it in some adult settings as well. Find multiple hotspots. You could create a hidden objects game. Find the hotspot, that it's very similar, but there's just one hotspot that you have to find. So if you wanted to create some kind of Where's Waldo type activity, that would be fun. You could get your staff involved, set up some kind of scene in the library to take a picture, use that as your background for that activity. There is a crossword puzzle maker and a word search maker. There's also an advent calendar. So I'm thinking holiday season, open up the doors and see a book jacket for a different book in your collection, or a video of one of your library staff talking about a book or sharing holiday wishes. Guess the answer. You could use that for some kind of a quiz activity, daily or weekly quiz question. Post a picture, local history maybe. What do you think, when did this happen, or who's in this picture? or post a picture of an author. Who is this author? And see if your patrons can guess. There is a personality quiz tool. So you don't have to get all your personality quizzes from BuzzFeed anymore. You can create your own. And more for, I think, younger kids, there's image pairing. So you can match up different images. So, maybe have a picture of an author and a picture of a book cover, match them up, or a picture of a character and a picture of a book cover and match them up. Memory game. Again, you could use that with book covers, comics, that kind of thing. And then image sequencing might be a good activity to complement a book club or a story time activity. So again, those are just a few ideas about how you can use H5P content for your library site. So hopefully you're now wondering, this is great. How can I get started with H5P? So you can try out H5P today. No risk, no upfront cost. All it takes is creating a free account on h5p.org. There's a link here. When you pull up this page, you can register at h5p.org. You would, to get started, you would go in, you could just go into the examples that are available on h5p.org. You can use that reuse button that's down there in the lower corner next to the embed button and download an H5P file. And then when you're in your account in h5p.org, you can upload that and get started with making edits to it. Or you could start from scratch and just start with picking an H5P content type and just starting completely from scratch. But h5p.org is really a great sandbox place to try some things out and explore all the different features and learn how to use it. And after you have used it and played around with it, you might think, hey, this is really great, and I want to adopt this in my library. So this is my suggestion for a roadmap. You would need to first decide where you're going to host your H5P content. So h5p.org, when you sign up for the free account, you will notice very quickly that there are alerts all over the place that it's not designed to host H5P content, that it's just meant for trying things out. So they will discourage you from embedding content that's stored in h5p.org. And I think at one time they even deactivated the embedding feature. So you would need a host for H5P content. When you're on the H5P website, they're going to push you to a subscription with h5p.com. And they do have a 30-day free trial. I'm not sure. I think pricing is on a sliding scale based on your organization and how many people are going to be using it. But it's also an option for you to self-host. You can do that on Drupal or on WordPress. So what I'm using is WordPress because that's what my personal website is. And it works really well on WordPress. And then when you're once you figured out where you're gonna host your content, then the next thing to decide is what content types are going to suit your particular purpose and your audience. So, really think about what it is you're trying to communicate. I know it's hard for some of us. We want to just go for the flashiest snazziest thing, but that might not be the right mode of communication for your audience. So, think about what you're trying to communicate, find the content type that's going to suit your purpose and suit your audience. Then work on creating it, developing that content. And then the final step is embedding it in Koha or wherever you want to reach your library patrons. So that could also be in library guide software, or, if you use WordPress for your library website, or some other CMS as the main landing page for your library site, you can embed it there. Some final considerations, little tidbits that I wanted to share that I've learned over the past year, kind of working with H5P, is that if you want, so there are a lot of content types that allow your users to put in data. So, whether it's, there are a lot of quizzes, questions, essay questions, there's a questionnaire, H5P content type. All of these would allow your users to input information into the H5P. If you want to keep that information, if you want it to be stored, and if you want to be able to access it, then your users have to be logged in to whatever is hosting the H5P. So it would not be a good idea to put a questionnaire or an essay question where you're wanting to collect information from your users directly in your Koha. And if you were putting it, say, for example, you were using a WordPress site, and your users would have to have a login for the WordPress site for that information to be saved. So that's a limitation right now for doing this. But there are plenty of H5P content types that you can use, that even to questions or quiz activities where your patrons are inputting information into the tool, they can get feedback from it. You just won't be able to see statistics from that. You won't be able to see how many people scored correctly or incorrectly, but the users get immediate feedback. So just something to keep in mind. Another thing to be aware of, and most of y'all probably already know this, if you're going to embed H5P and Koha and you're self-hosting it somewhere, you need to make sure that you're self-hosting it on a server that has an HTTPS security certificate. If you're using HTTPS on your Koha site, which I'm assuming everybody is using security certificates on their Koha site. But one thing you'll find, if you're trying to embed content from a non-secure site onto a secure site, a lot of browsers will block that content. So make sure that if you're setting up a WordPress server just to host H5P content, make sure that you put a security certificate on that. There are also tons and tons and tons of development opportunities if it can gain some traction in our community. There's all kinds of documentation out there about how to write H5P plugins so that H5P can be integrated into other platforms. So right now, there are only integrations available for WordPress, Drupal, and Moodle. But if there was some enterprising someone out there with the skills who wanted to write a plugin for Koha, there's documentation out there. It is possible. There are also development opportunities for writing and creating content types. So I think it would be fabulous to have an H5P content type called bookshelf. where you can have an interactive bookshelf where you can put different book covers up there and have it link to your library catalog records, or even use API to pull information into it and display right there in the H5P. So not that I'm volunteering myself to write any of these or develop any of these. I just like to share ideas and dream. So those are just a few development opportunities for those who are enterprising enough and skilled in doing that. And that's all I have for you. So again, my name is Myka Kennedy Stevens. I'm the Associate Professor of Theological Bibliography at Lancaster Theological Seminary in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And all of these materials are available on my blog. And I also sent the link to the conference committee. So hopefully the link to the page where everything is will show up on the conference website soon.
Yes, I think Jason is putting it up no later than tomorrow morning before we start again. So thank you. That was really interesting. I have so many ideas and not enough time for any of them. We do have a couple questions in the YouTube chat. Christopher Brandon asked, is it free to self-host?
Yes, it is. Well,
And,
with the caveat. So, you have to set up your server and, there's that cost, but the actual cost of the H5P plugin for WordPress, it's free. It's all open source and free.
And does it need an exclusive WordPress site or can it be added to an existing WordPress site?
It can be added to an existing WordPress site. And that is actually one of the things I was really excited about when I started playing around with it in WordPress. So all of the H5P, I'm going to stop sharing for now. All of the H5P content that is in WordPress, it's stored in a separate place. So you can see it, access it from your menu, and it's like this whole library of H5P content. You can embed it anywhere without even like publishing it to a post or a page on your WordPress site. So, what it does is it'll give you the short code. So if you want to put it on a post or a page in your WordPress site, you just use the short code when you're doing that in WordPress for it to appear publicly in WordPress. But as long as it's there in your WordPress, you can have it in the background and then, embed it, bring it over wherever. So I think it's really, I like that it has that flexibility. So it's, it's available, but you don't have to make it a part of your WordPress site. You can keep it hidden from everything else in your WordPress site. If that makes sense.
Do you have any questions there? You're muted.
Does anybody here in the room have questions? Nope, doesn't look like there are questions here.
Okay, so far there's no more questions on the YouTube. Can you send the link to your site so we can see what you've done?
So if you go to mission-information.org and click on posts, it's the most recent post. And you'll see all the links, everything that I presented to you. That was the page. Yeah, and all the links. Our library's Koha site is library.lancasterseminary.edu.
Not seeing any other questions in the chat yet, but we will give it a second because there's always a bit of a delay.
Yeah, and I do, as part of the whole reuse ethos, everything that I've created, y'all are welcome to take it, reuse it, use it as it is. it's open. It's open for use. I have and will be continuing to add more of the H5P contents that I've developed to my blog. There's a link to the category for H5P, so there will be also some other things. Most of what I've developed in the last year was developed inside Moodle. Moodle is our learning management system at Lancaster Theological Seminary. So I've created several H5P things in Moodle. One of the limitations, like I wish I could, I can't create things in Moodle and embed them outside of Moodle because of the access wall. You have to be logged into Moodle to be able to view that content in Moodle. But what I'm slowly doing is I'm downloading those files from Moodle and then uploading them into the H5P library on my site. So it also makes it really flexible when you have to move things around like that and migrate from one thing to another.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. We're getting some applause emojis in the chat from Christopher and Sumpta. Yeah. Fred also said he is also having all sorts of ideas, but needs a couple more days each week to explore. And yeah, I feel the same. We're hopefully after we update Koha next week, because we're early adopters, and also launch our new WordPress website that we've been working on, might have a little more time for this kind of stuff. But I'm very excited to start digging into this. And Olivia said, thank you for presenting, Myka. Excited to learn more about H5P. It's new to me. Oh, me too. I definitely heard of it, but I didn't know how much you could do with it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I'm signed up for their mailing list, and they seem to be releasing new content types every few months. So there are a few content types that are only available on h5p.com, which I don't understand why I think they want to make a little bit of money, but it seems like a pretty solid development community with a lot of good support.